Alrighty, it appears that we are live. Hello everyone. If you don't know, my name is Jonathan Cohn. This is my BookTube channel where I talk everything books, and today is my regular bi-weekly live stream where I'll be answering any questions and discussing anything book-related that you guys are interested. So if you have anything to say, you can leave your comment in the chat box, and I'll try to answer it as best as I can, although some questions I may not be able to answer if I haven't read the books, that kind of thing. So if I don't have too many questions, I have some pre-prepared topics I can talk about, but if questions come in, I'll start focusing on talking about the questions. So to begin with, I can start by showing some of the books that I have on my TBR that I specifically have in my possession. Books that I don't need to go out and buy. Books that I have right here, and I have about 20 of them. And that's just for the genre of fantasy. That's not even including the other genres that I want to get into either. So hey, and I have a first comment. Is from Revan1207, says, "Hey, Jonathan, not sure how long I'll be able to be here, but I thought I'd hang out for a bit." Oh, thanks. Thanks, Revan. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I've been enjoying seeing your updates on Goodreads, and thank you for liking my reviews on Goodreads. They've been helpful in boosting my notoriety there. So to discuss some of the books that I have on my reading list of fantasy specifically that are on my shelves that I eventually want to get to, I have the Dragonlance series, the first three, Autumn Twilight, Winter Night, and also Spring Dawning. I have a few more comments. I'll quickly get there. I see the Blue Pig says, hey guys. Hello, Blue Pig. Thank you for being here last time and this time. Sorry about the technical difficulties last time. And I have Brandon Harbeck. I hope that's how I pronounce. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. It says, "Hello, I saw that you recently reviewed Manta's Gift very favorably. Have you had the chance to read Cobra by the same author yet?" Yes. So I have read the first three Cobra novels. He did Cobra, Cobra Strike, and Cobra Bargain. And then there are six more. There's three trilogies total that he wrote in the series, and I've only read the first trilogy. I thought Cobra was an amazing novel. I thought it was inspired. It was original. It was very classic sci-fi. Really liked it. However, I thought that Cobra Strike was a little bit boring. And I thought that Cobra Bargain was great, but didn't necessarily hit the excellent heights that the first Cobra novel did. But I do want to get to the other trilogies eventually, but I have a lot of other Timothy Zahn books on my list that I need to read eventually. So, I'll get there eventually. I have another comment from Luna C4 says, "I just picked up Brotherhood the other day. I watched your review, but wanted to ask if you recommend it." I absolutely recommend it. Absolutely. I think of the Star Wars, we're only about halfway through the year, but of the Star Wars books released in 2022, I think it is the best one we've gotten this year. And it's a quintessential prequel book, but also a quintessential episode 2 novel. Works really well for both of those. So I do highly recommend it. However, it's not the best novel in Star Wars or anything, but it's a very, very well done novel. Last night I reread it so that I could do a review on my podcast where we talk for like an hour and a half about the book. So that'll be coming out later this year or later this month. It's going to be on the Two Sons of Tatooine podcast, but I have my short video that's like 10 minutes that is spoiler free. So let me go to the next comment, which is from the Blue Pig. What do you do when a book is out of print? It depends. I really go to ABE Books because ABE Books is easy to find used books because it's where a lot of used bookstores pile together. I realize it's owned by Amazon, but a lot of used bookstores do work together there. So I do go there from a lot of my out of print books. But depending on how out of print it is and how in demand it is, sometimes the prices just go incredibly high. And so unless I'm like super invested, I need the book, I just don't end up buying it. But generally, most of the types of books I'm interested in purchasing are in print. So that's not usually a big issue for me. But and then if it's like if I'm kind of interested but not entirely interested, it just depends. But ABE Books is my biggest recommendation. Arthur Lowry, hello Arthur, thanks for being here, says, I've wanted to ask, have you read or planning to read the Willow movie sequel trilogy of books, The Chronicles of the Shadow War by Chris Claremont and George Lucas? It's from the 90s. Oh, it's so funny. You should mention that. I have read the first one. I read it this week. I will have a video on the channel in a couple of weeks that I recorded. I hope I'm not disappointing you when I'm saying this was sadly one of the worst books I read this year. And I try not to talk about negative books, but I didn't love it. I'm so sorry. I see you have some other comments. I'll get there in a second. But I have a full review on my Goodreads of the book, which is in written form, but then I have the video coming out later. So yes, I read the first one, didn't love it. Speaking of out of print books, that's a book that trilogy is not only out of print, but it's really rare. So the books are going for like upwards of $80 just for the mass market paperback. And I'm just like, it's not worth it at this point. Like I'm intrigued to see where he goes with it, but since I didn't like the book, I don't want to continually just keep handing out bad reviews to the author. So anyway, I'm sorry to yuck on your yum. The next comment I see is from Be Cool Play Nice. Love your username. It says, hey Jonathan, have you ever read Hyperion? I think you'd enjoy it. If not, I read the first book of Hyperion and thought it was excellent. I have the second book, haven't read it yet, but I did get it this year. I thought the first book was excellent, but man, is it weird. It is just weird. It's not even weird like, ooh, cool. It's just weird in moments. But I am interested in reading more of it. So I see Chika Army says, have you read Star Wars Heir to the Jedi? Yes, I have. I hope you're referring to Heir to the Jedi, not Heir to the Empire, because sometimes those titles do get mixed up. Yes, Heir to the Jedi is this one, and I think it is not great, but it is a fine book. It's actually warmed on me over the last couple of years. When I first read it, I didn't like it at all. And then the second time I read it, I was like, it's not as bad. And then the third time I was like, it's fine. So that's my thoughts on Heir to the Jedi. If you're referring to that. If you're talking about Heir to the Empire, I think that's amazing. But anyway, let's see the next comment on here. Revan 12 says, I'm hoping to pick up Brotherhood sometime soonish. I've got a birthday coming up too, and it was on my list, so maybe I'll get it as a gift. I hope you do, because I think it's well worth it. The good thing about Brotherhood is it works in the canon really well, but it also works as like a Legends novel almost. It has that feeling, that tone that Legends has, and it's sometimes some books just totally feel Legends and would never fit in the canon, and some canon books would never fit in Legends. This is one that straddles both and could work in both, and which is why I think it's a really unifying book, which I think is really good. Let me check the next comment. Says Arthur Lowry. I assume you're still referring to the Shadow trilogy. I love the trilogy and found it dense and rewarding. However, I've not read a lot of adult fantasy, so I'm not sure if I loved it because I was just due for some fantasy or because it's genuinely good. Maybe if it I just think it's a bad version of media tie-in fiction because you have a job to do when you're tying into a property, and I don't think it did a good job tying into the property. And it didn't do anything revolutionary or anything spectacular with the fantasy tropes. I would recommend a whole bunch more fantasy series ahead of it. But there were a few things it did get right. So like some of the tones it did get right. So I have the next comment says, I only have it's from NP Bro. NP Bro is who I do the Two Sons of Tatooine podcast with. He says, I only have one question. Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? I don't know. That's an age-old question. We will never know. It was busy watching the Rings of Power trailer that just came out. Arthur Rory says, woo, that's okay, referring to my yucking on his yum earlier. I'm sorry. Let's see, the next comment says, The Blue Pig, do you have a review of The Crystal Star? That is a book that, before I even got into Star Wars books, I knew that one was controversial and pretty well disliked by the fandom, and I just haven't read it yet. I probably will read it because I'm a completionist. I want to get to everything, but that's one that I'm like, I don't want to go out of my way to read a book I'm going to dislike. That's my general. If I know I'm going to dislike something, unless I'm a really set completionist, I try to avoid. I try to avoid reading it because I don't want to just hand out a whole ton of bad reviews. If I handed out a bad review, it's because I wasn't expecting the book to be bad. I want my books to be books that I'm hoping are going to be fun and having fun with. So. Have not read it yet, but probably will one day. That Funky Monkey, hello, thank you for joining us, says, yo, I watched your recent podcast, LOL. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties there, but that was a fun podcast to record, talking about ranking all our Star Wars movies. And I was controversial. NP Bro was like, dude, you have Empire Strikes Back where? Like that was pretty fun. Ryan Proctor, hello. Ryan says, what are your thoughts on graphic novels? I'm not really into graphic novels as much. I have about 12 or 13 bind-ups of some books. I don't have a full graphic novel in my collection. It's just because it's not a medium I enjoy. My biggest enjoyment is prose, fiction prose, and genre prose. So getting into science fiction and fantasy and tie-in fiction. So even though there are like Star Wars comics or Star Trek comics, because it's like a comic, it's a visual. I'm not a visual person. I'm more like a book person. So I just haven't gotten into them. But if you love them, that's awesome because there are some awesome ones out there. The Blue Pig says, geez, man, how quickly do you read books? So during the month of July, this was the best month I ever had. I generally read about a book every 2 to 3 days. But in the month of July, I've been reading a book just about every day because I haven't had work. Work starts in August, so I will slow down significantly. But I usually read about 100 to 120 books a year, in that range. I usually can read about 100 to 150 pages a day during a normal work day. And then sometimes on the weekends, I'll go 200, 250 a day if I can speed it up. So let me go to the next comment. Says, be cool, Prince. Says, picked up the first Rune Lords book on your recommendation. Loved it. Hoping to see more Rune Lord stuff from you. Thank you. I am hoping to bring more Rune Lord stuff because there's not enough discussion. There are no other booktubers talking about it right now. There's some books, videos from like years ago, but nothing current. And that needs to change because it's an epic, awesome series. It's, when I collect multiple copies of a book, I'm a big fan. And so I have the hardcovers and the paperbacks. And I still don't have all the tall hardcovers. So I still want to finish that out. But I will have more videos eventually, just not in the immediate future. Justin Krager. Hello, Justin. You've really started commenting a lot recently. Thank you so much. You've been helping boost me in the algorithm. Arthur Lowry says, I thought Heir to the Jedi was actually a lot of fun, even with its silly spoon levitation. The spoon levitation wasn't necessarily what bothered me. It's just that the voice of Luke didn't seem right, maybe, to me. That scene I thought was actually quite in character. So that part didn't bother me. But I know it has its fans. I know on the Star Wars Bookworms podcast, Teresa Delgado loved that book. And the co-host with her did not love that book. Ryan Proctor says, the only thing that can destroy the awesomeness of the stream is a rising storm. I do not have any storms on the horizon that I've seen. What he's referring to is the last time I did a live stream, I had a storm come through, wipe out my internet. It destroyed the stream. I'm so sorry about that. But I don't foresee that happening today. So hopefully that will not happen. Lane Strawbridge says, I just finished the OG Thrawn trilogy and I kind of don't know where to go next because there's so much to read. Any recommendations? Yes, Lane. Thank you for being here. First thing is the X-Wing series. And the second thing would be the Jedi Academy trilogy. And then once you've read both, then read iJedi. That's the order I would go, because then you'll get the full understanding of that part of the timeline. And then you can go further in the timeline after that. But that's because those are good books that I just recommend. It's some of the best, and it'll lead you. You'll be so engrossed in the Star Wars books, I think, that it'll lead you into everything else, and it'll feel organic, because those were the earliest published ones that were good. Revan 1207 says, do you have any special limited leather-bound editions, or do you just stick to the usual paperbacks and hardcovers? I don't have any leather-bounds. One day, if I ever actually have like real money, I intend to buy all the leather-bounds of the Cosmere, because Brandon Sanderson's my favorite author. But because of my financial situation and also just where I am, I would rather get more books that I could potentially read than to spend a lot of money on one book I've already read or one book that I might enjoy. Like, for now, my goal is reading as much as I physically can, and then once I've like really read a lot and I've actually eventually gotten in a better financial place, then I'll start spending my money on leather bounds. So I just have a comment from Brendan Harbeck. Says, after Thrawn trilogy, try Thrawn from Canon or X-Wing from Rogue Squadron Legends. Yeah, good recommendation there. Blue Pig says Rogue Squadron's really good. Blue Pig says the series. I don't actually like the first book that much. Interesting. I thought the first book was okay, but I think books 2, 3, and 4 are like solid. So. Says the series as a whole is great. Arthur Lowry says, your reaction to Shadow Dawn is what I feared from a well-read fantasy reader. Haha. I agree it isn't not a great piece of expanded universe for Willow, though. Yeah, I don't know what George Lucas was thinking there. And in my video, like I don't want to spoil all my thoughts on it, but in my video, I go deep. It's like a long video. I had a lot of thoughts, and they're spoiler-free, but I have a lot of thoughts on it. So that comes out sometime in August. So I'll have that video then. Reverend 1207 says, I'll have to check out that podcast episode. I'll also have a somewhat controversial Star Wars ranking. LOL. Yes, I love controversial Star Wars movie and TV show rankings. Johan Herrenberg says, hello. Hi, Jonathan. How do you rate Dooku Jedi Lost? I think it is an excellent audio drama. There have been, that I'm aware of, 3 released audio dramas for Star Wars. We have the Dooku Jedi Lost, we have the Dr. Aphra, and then we have the High Republic Tempest Runner. I thought that Dooku Jedi Lost, the first one, was really unique. I thought it was a really fun story. I think that the Tempest Runner, which is also by Kevin Scott, is a better story, but both of them are significantly better than the Dr. Aphra one, which I thought was one of the most needless Star Wars books we've ever had. Like, it just retread ground we already knew. But I thought Dooku Jedi Lost was really interesting because it really explored not just Dooku, but also it explored the prequel era and explored Yoda and explored the Jedi and Sith and his fall from grace and Ventress and all that fun stuff. I don't remember too much of the details from it, though, but that's because it's such a quick read. Like, I don't do the audio drama. I do the print version, so it just reads super quick. Justin Krager says, the Star Wars comics are great. Yes, they are. I have not read too much, as I said, like 12 or 15 in the bind-up, so like 6 of them, 6 of the issues, so a little bit of it, but from what I've read, they're really great. That Funky Monkey says, what is your least favorite book in canon? Okay, so if you had just said least favorite, like Star Wars book, I would have had a very simple answer, and that would have been the Ronin book, which is the only Star Wars book I've ever given a 1-star to, which is sad because I was hoping for them to expand. In the canon, though, it would... give me a second to think real quick on my feet. Probably... Legends of Luke Skywalker. This one, I take it back. This is the other 1-star that I gave. Why? Just why? I want to be on those conversations at Lucasfilm and at the Disney Lucasfilm Press, because why? All right. I've got a lot of comments. I'm going to have to keep reading. The Blue Pig says, have you read the Magic the Gathering novels? No, but I saw that some of them are written by Greg Weisman, who was a writer on Star Wars Rebels, which was a TV show that I really loved. So I am interested in reading them one day. I'm not sure if I ever will, because I'm not a Magic the Gathering player, and I love tie-in fiction, so I love anything that connects to other stuff, but I have so much else to get to. So I'm not sure that'll happen. I have a comment from Ryan Proctor again. It says, how long does it take you to read 100 pages typically? So I actually have different speeds for the beginning of a book and an end of a book. The beginning of a book, 100 pages, usually takes me an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer. If I'm talking the end of a book, I can get it done in like 45 minutes because I'm just speeding through. I really like the difference between it takes me if I have a 400-page book, it takes me an hour and a half, and then I just speed through the end. And so I'm like, whoa, I'm halfway through, and now all of a sudden I'm done. So the endings I always just speed through. I don't have a reason why, but I just don't. That's how it works. Nanga Eboko, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, says, after Thrawn, I would read the Jedi Academy series. These are, I read these books in real time, and I believe that was the next trilogy published. It was. They were published, whereas the original Thrawn trilogy was 91, 92, 93. The Jedi Academy was all published in 94. They did it all in 1 year. But yes, it was the next trilogy published. Be cool, play nice. Oh no, I just had a ton of comments scroll through. Sorry. I'm trying to get through everyone. Says, I'm dying for some Canon Old Republic stuff since most of what was available is now Legends. Even in Legends, we didn't get that many. We only got like 10 novels in the Old Republic line, and it's like thousands of years in the timeline. So yes, we do need more novels. We probably won't get any until they're done with High Republic and they have time to focus the editorial team on developing all of that. But also they have to have like the go ahead, because I think that they've been basically told by the story group and by the executives, hey, we're just not going there now. We have other stuff to do. Go do the other stuff and we'll do the Old Republic later. Like don't do everything all at once. Save some for later. That's probably what they're going with. The Blue Pig says, I'd read Isard's Revenge before the Jedi Academy trilogy. Interesting. You can. Isard's Revenge is it's a good one. I think it's the weakest of the Stackpole novels, but you could read it before the Jedi Academy trilogy. Blue Pig says, be cool, play nice. A lot of the Legend stuff is just as good, if not better. But for canon stuff, read Princess and the Scoundrel is coming out. There's a few YA, and also Last Shot is a good one. Yeah, Last Shot is interesting, but it is comedy. It is a comedy, so be prepared for that. NP Bro says, one day when we make this channel big enough to be full-time. Oh, NP Bro, that'll be the day. But it is not this day. Brandon Harbeck says, the Hand of Thrawn duology is also well worth checking out for fans of the Thrawn trilogy. Yes, but if you read that, you will spoil so much of the Legends timeline because there's so much in between the original Thrawn trilogy and the duology. So I would suggest reading the other stuff before. I did that, but I still missed a few things. I missed iJedi before getting to the Hand of Thrawn, and I wish I had read iJedi first because the Hand of Thrawn spoils some stuff from that. So Be Cool Play Nice says, I've read a lot of Legends, trying to get into the new stuff as well. Yeah. The nice thing about Legends is since it's done, you have a set, this is how much I have to get through to get there. The Orchel come Spider, I don't know how to pronounce that. Where is your favorite place to buy books? So it changed because I had a place that I went to where I used to live that was amazing, and I don't live there anymore. So right now, for used books, I go to a place called Second and Charles. I also go to ABE Books a lot, and then Barnes & Noble for new books. But I don't go to Barnes & Noble for new release day books because they never have them on release day. They're like a day or two late, and I want to have the books immediately to try to review them and have them ready to go, which is why some of my new release videos have been late recently. So I would say that actually for a new release, it's Amazon. For a newish book that's in good condition, Barnes & Noble. And then for used, if I'm going online, ABE Books. And if I'm going in store, I'm going to Second and Charles. But there is a big store that I don't get to go to often, but when I do, it's amazing. And it is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and also in Knoxville. It is McKay's Books, funnest place on earth. McKay's Books is the single best bookstore to go to, but I only get to go there like once every year, sadly. The Blue Pig says, we got to get a ton of TV shows in that era soon. Probably will eventually. Lunacy 4 says, I heard a lot about Bloodline. I am torn because I have heard it is pretty much completely about the politics. I like some politics, but is there also any action? Not a ton of action. There is some. Leia does have some action moments in the book, but it is a primarily political book. I still think it's in the top 10 canon novels because it really does a good job of laying the groundwork for the sequel trilogy. Even if you don't like the sequel trilogy, it still lays groundwork well, kind of like Aftermath does, kind of like Shadow of the Sith. It lays groundwork. And also, Claudia Gray just gets Leia really well. She gets Leia and she gets Qui-Gon. And so I'm okay if she writes either of those characters, and that's a good one. And it's a good companion to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, because there's some connections there, even though they're like 30 years apart in the timeline. TT says, any tips for reading fatigue mid-book? I've been stuck on The Fires of Heaven for a few months now. I actually like the book, but I can never consistently read the thing. I got like 150 pages left. So mine is, I have a goal. I must read a certain amount every day, as I was talking about earlier in the stream. So I just, even if I dislike the book, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to finish it. Darn it. And I have a goal. I'm going to read more than 100 books this year. So I have to keep up the pace. I have to keep reading as fast as I can to get to those 100 books. And that also means I need to try to maybe focus on books that I'm actually more interested in. So that's my answer. And I see, I'll probably just try to power through. This ever happened to you during Wheel of Time? No, because I loved like everything about Wheel of Time. Even the slog, I was just blazing through because it was so much fun. Because Wheel of Time is my favorite fantasy series. But I get from most people, the slog is harder. So I can understand that happening. Brandon Harbeck says, Bloodline has it all. It does have some politics, but also is a perfect Leia book and has some other great original characters. There is some great action too. I wish I could read this scroll faster because then I could just look at your comments to answer. Blue Pig says, dang, Ronan is one of my least favorites too. Yep. I have so much to say about that. I didn't make a review because I would have been ranting and I didn't want to rant. Tim Mickles says, Brother Jonathan. Hello, Tim. Tim is a good friend of mine. Random question. Have you ever read the ending first? Many times. I have a habit. First, I try to look and see how many page count it is, but I try to avoid actually reading stuff. But there are times where I'm just like, I need the ending. I need to know, do they end up together? There, especially if I'm invested in a romance. This most often happens if it's like there's a romantic subplot and I know it's going to be done by the end of the book. If it's like a series, if it's like a trilogy, I'm on the third book. I'm like, does Katniss and Peeta end up together? Spoiler. It's like that type of thing. I'm like, but not often. But it does happen occasionally. Blue Pig says, the War of the Spark novels are good. I have not heard of that, but I will try to. Oh, that's the Magic the Gathering. That's right. I will try to remember those. I haven't read the others. Lane Strawbridge says, where do you usually get your hardcovers from? Because I can usually only find paperback or way too expensive hardcover, and I'm trying to start a hardcover collection. Well, it depends. For the new hardcovers, for instance, my Star Wars, I got all of them from either Barnes & Noble or from Amazon as they were coming out, and so they were new releases. For, let's say, the Rune Lords, which I'm collecting in hardcover, I got all of these either from local used bookstores or from ABE Books, which ABE Books was pretty much the primary place. And then for these hardcovers up here, they were all from used bookstores. So generally, that's where I find it. If it's a used thing, just wherever. If I can find it in a local store, I go there. But if not, I'll just go online. And then for new hardcovers, it's Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But I realize that's expensive to get new books from there. But that's how new books are. The Blue Pig says they also can stand by themselves. They sort of explain the context. Trying to get through all these. How do you go so fast? It takes me 2 weeks to read a book. Well, because I'm determined, and this is also my life. This is my thing. I do watch some TV shows. I have been watching some recently, and I do hang out with some people. But reading is it's a priority. It must happen. It will not happen. And then I have Unlikely Ally. Hello, one of the oldest subscribers, not in age, but in how long he's been here. I'm sorry I'm late and don't know if this was asked. You see the new Rings of Power trailers. Personally, I'm excited from a similar perspective of how you describe Legends versus Canon. Yeah, Rings of Power, interesting trailer. I don't really talk about TV shows that much, but I'll be brief here. I realize it's not following Tolkien's vision, and I realize it's strained a lot from where I would go if I was in charge of it. But it still looks fun to me, and I think it'll be entertaining at minimum. I think that I'm more excited for the new House of the Dragon series. I'm actually more into that. But maybe the LOTR series, the Rings of Power, will be just as exciting. I don't know. We'll find out. Ryan Proctor says, have you ever considered writing your own novel? Absolutely. And I have written my own work before. I've written a couple of novels, but they are not ready for publication, and I have not gotten an agent and haven't gotten a publisher or anything. So I'm like, maybe later when I have more time, I could focus on getting an agent. Getting an agent is the first thing, and then I'll try to sell those books or write more books to sell instead. So Revan 1207 says, I really wish we got more Old Republic books. That's probably my favorite era, and Knights of the Old Republic is my favorite Star Wars thing ever. I know a lot of people with that sentiment, and it's a good game, and we will get more Old Republic books, but we have to be patient. It's like they're going slowly back. First, it took a while for us to get prequel novels. Then it took us a while to get High Republic. So then when High Republic's done, which will probably be about 2 or 3 years, then we'll go into the Old Republic, probably. But I'm not sure. Speaking of, have you ever played Knights of the Old Republic? I played a little bit of it. I didn't finish the whole game, but I'm not a gamer. I don't really play video games. I play like Minecraft, and I did play some of the Lego Star Wars, but I haven't played recently. I've not picked up a video game except for when I've gone to like a friend of mine house. Other than that, I have not picked up a video game on my own in about 2 or 3 years. Justin Krieger says, I have read every single adult canon novel, so I am reading through Legends at the moment. Good for you. That's a feat to get through all the canon, because there's a decent amount of them. Not as many as Legends, but there's a decent amount. Johan Herrenberg says, perhaps you should make a video about your ideal reading order of the Legends books. You are so knowledgeable. Oh, thank you. I've discussed like my rankings of them, certainly, and I could make that video. The easiest answer that I just always give is look at the release order. Just go whatever the release order was if you can. Sometimes like trilogies were written as the other ones were being written, so that's kind of hard to do. But generally, if you can do release order, that is the easiest answer to everything, because that's the way they were supposed to be read. Dave Reese says, how long did it take you to get through just one of the Wheel of Time books? It depends. The earliest ones took me a little longer because I wasn't as much of a reader back then. So it took me about 1 or 2 weeks. That was like 5 or 6 years. That's 2018, 4 years ago. And then the middle books, I was reading in about less than a week. And then the end books, I was reading so fast because I was loving them. I read them in like 2 or 3 days each, particularly Brandon Sanderson's, because they were just superb. Gathering Storm is my favorite one, and Memory of Light is also superb. So those ones I read in only a couple of days. Blue Pig says, we got to get you advanced reader copies. Blue Pig, from your lips to God's ears. Don't know if that'll ever happen. I wish, but probably not. If I can grow more, I think it's possible, but I am not on anyone's radar, and I haven't had any communication with any publishers yet. And sadly, Star Trek doesn't do advanced reader copies. Star Wars does, but Star Trek doesn't. And that's very frustrating because they should. Because there's a reason why Star Trek books don't sell as much as Star Wars, partially because the audience isn't there, but also partially because they don't have a good reviewership in place. Anyway, I'm ranting a little bit. Johan Herrenberg says, Brandon, just read Bloodline. It's excellent. Yes, it is. Mass Studio says, hi, I would like to know what your favorite Thrawn trilogy book. Of the original Thrawn trilogy, probably Heir to the Empire, because I just think it's so superbly written. But that doesn't mean, like, I think the other ones are almost as good. That Dark Force Rising and Last Command are really close. I just think that Heir to the Empire is just a more enjoyable book for me. Tim Mickle says, I knew it. By the way, Tim, my review of Sycamore Row, the book that you're reading, that comes out this week, so you got to read it so that you can watch the review, because you got to finish it, Tim, because the ending's so good. Oh, the ending's so good. Anyway, all right. You can call me Spider. Oh, thank you, Spider. Okay, I was really trying. I could, but here's the question: what is your least favorite trope? I strongly dislike "It was all a dream," Yeah, that one's dislike tropes. I don't like the hero was the villain the whole time, or the hero has a deep dark secret. I don't love those. I love tropes in general, especially like more fantastical, traditional storytelling tropes. I can tell you my favorites are self-sacrifice, sacrificial love, friends to lovers, that type of trope. I love those types of tropes. So the Blue Pig says, it was all a dream, books need to die. Yes, probably. Although there are a handful of uses for them, but LOL, hearing that you read endings first sometimes is shocking to me. I would never, Sometimes it's accidental, but sometimes it's not. Tim Mickle says he turns off the TV. Tim, I'll give you a hint. Last night I was supposed to read. I had a big thick book, and I instead bought Netflix and watched a lot of Stranger Things. I should have been reading because anyway went down too many TV rabbit holes. But if I turned it off more often, I'd read even faster. Joel X, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, says, I read the Kenobi book in 5 days because it was so good. Yes! It was also the first book I read in English. Oh, great. That's actually going to be when I'm finished learning German, because I'm learning German. It'll be the first book that I finish in German. But yes, it is an excellent novel. My single favorite Star Wars novel of all time. It's so good. Oh, I have a video gushing about it. It's just such a good book. Master is, how long did it take you to get through Lord of the Rings? That one was a slog. Let me be honest. Yeah, I talk about how most books take me 2 to 3 days. As expected, there are some that go faster and some that go longer. That one got longer. Those were more like 6 or 7 days to read, and it took me 2 times to get through Fellowship, because I read up to Tom Bombadil and then I said, I'm out. And then a couple years later, I picked it up and read it all. Well, it really helps if you have a podcast to do, because then you have to finish it on a deadline. That helps, because then I will read it even if I'm having struggle. Nanga Eboko says, is there a Star Wars novel that you think is overrated and one that you think is underrated? Overrated, I wouldn't say a specific novel. I will say an author, and that is Matthew Stover. A lot of people love Shatterpoint, love the Revenge of the Sith novel, and also Traitor. And of the 3, I specifically think Traitor is the one that everyone says it's the quintessential New Jedi Order book. It's my least favorite New Jedi Order book. I don't think it takes the characters in a direction I don't like. I don't want them to go in that direction. So I also just, it wasn't fun. It was rough. It was hard. I don't like when my Star Wars books feel like a slog to get through, because I felt like I was reading pain. I don't like that. So that's my most overrated. Underrated, that's a toughie. I think that A New Dawn, certainly a significantly underrated novel. People don't talk about A New Dawn enough. That one, and then maybe Catalyst, but Catalyst gets a lot of love. But like, I really think Catalyst is, if I was going to teach a class on media tie-in fiction, one of the books would for sure be Catalyst in that. So, but Joel X says, did you read Dune? Yes, I loved the first Dune book. Loved it, and I watched the new movie, and the new movie's amazing. And I read books 2 and 3 and didn't love them. But the first book is amazing, and the movie is absolutely brilliant. Blue Pig says, I think if you start a Discord server, that'll help boost the community. That's true. I don't know if I have the time to have a Discord server to manage. And also, there's just an element of, if I did it, would I make it completely free? Would I make it like a Patreon thing, and I'm not big enough to have a Patreon yet, so I don't know. It is something on my mind, and I need to find like moderators if I did, and people who I knew would be focused. So there's a lot that goes into that. It's something that will happen one day, but I don't think I'm ready for that yet. But thank you for the ideas. Revan 1207 says, have you been reading since you were a kid, or did you pick it up later on? I loved reading as a kid, but mostly reread the same books. Then I stopped for years and only just got back into it. I hated reading. I hated it. I hated it with a passion until the age of 16. At the age of 16, I went out and purchased a Star Wars book. Do I have it here? Yes, I purchased Lords of the Sith, just because the cover and because my mom was like, you should read a book. And so I was like, haha, I'll read a Star Wars book. And I loved it. And I was like, and this was in 2015, right when Force Awakens came out. And I looked, and there's a timeline, and I was like, there are other books. There are other Star Wars books. And that got me into reading. And then I started reading Shannara, and that got me into fantasy. And then I read Wheel of Time really fast. And so it was about age 16 to now. So the last 6 years, I've been reading nonstop. But up until age 16, like, only read if I had to. And I'm hoping to change that in community, because reading is awesome. Unlikely Ally says, as an obsessive goal-oriented reader, are you also a rereader? I frequently find anywhere from 10 to 25% of my yearly reads are being books I've already read, while my TBR pile looks at me in dismay. My rereads are generally run by, I have to read them for a podcast, or because I'm doing a readathon with someone else that I know. I rarely reread books that I just want to reread, because there's so many new books. There's over 4,000 novels released every single day, and I can only read like one every day. So I'm like way behind the curve. And so I want to read so much. So I do occasionally reread maybe 1 or 2 books a year, just on my own, not for a podcast, not for anything, just for me as a comfort read. But generally it's because I'm doing it as part of a project. Immortal David says, have you read any books on wildlife or specific animals? I have not really gotten into nonfiction like that too much. One, because it's a harder read, and also it's just not as engaging for me. But if you have suggestions, I'm always open. Justin Krager says, I follow the channel Utini, and they have around 1,000 more subscribers than you, and they get advanced copies of Star Wars books, so I think you can totally do it. Yeah. The thing with Utini is they were more entrenched in the community. They had the subscription box back in the day. They have connections with the editors and the authors. They've had interviews with them. I have not. So that's, I think, the difference between us, not just the number of subscribers, but its potential. One of my good friends who runs the Geek Static, he has about 1,000 more than me, and he's been getting advanced copies forever. So it's possible, but we'll see. Unlikely Ally says, oh, you just mentioned Stranger Things. Have you read any of the novels? I have not, but one is by the Shadow of the Sith author, and I want to check it out soon. I haven't read them. I had not watched any of Stranger Things until last night at 10 p.m. And I thought it was amazing. So I do want to get into the books eventually. And I saw 2 books, maybe a third of the adult. I saw that there's maybe some young adult, but I don't think I'll get into that. But the adult novels, and yes, one of them is by Adam Christopher. But I'm not like a raving, like I've not been in the trenches of Stranger Things, so it's not on my highest priority. But it's a media tie-in fiction book, so that might be worth it. Let's see. Carlos Rafael Martinez Arroyo, love the name, says, hello, greetings from Spain. I just finished Light of the Jedi yesterday. Really loved it. Should I go on with the YA novel or continue to the adult novel trilogy? If you read the adult novels, which I think are much superior to the YA, they are amazing and they mostly flow. But there are details that you will miss. There are little details you will miss. But the overarching story you will absolutely get. I think that the middle grade novels, particularly the 2 that are by Justina Ireland, are better than the YA novels. But that's just me. You might enjoy the YA more. But so if you want to get a full picture, read all 3, the adult, middle grade, and YA. If you just want to get some of it, stick with the adult, because the adult books are much better. That's where I would go. Let's see. Nolan Lamar says, hello, Jonathan. Me and my girlfriend love your videos. Oh, thank you, Nolan. That's great that you're sharing the channel. I am hoping to get more people into reading and more people discussing their reading, which is always good. Have you read Darth Maul's Shadowhunter? Again, that is one of the few books I only have about 15 or 20 books left in the Legends line that I haven't read. I've read about 110 of them, 120 of them. So I don't have that much left to read, but that is one of the ones I have left to read. And I've heard nothing but good things about it. Spider says, is there a book you hate but everybody else loves, and vice versa? Okay, I can easily do the vice versa. I love Elantris, and everyone else says it is their least favorite Cosmere novel. It is my favorite Cosmere novel. It is my favorite novel of all time, and nobody else loves it like that much. For something like Star Trek, people don't talk about the Prey trilogy, but I think that's the best Star Trek trilogy. And then a lot of people don't love Cloak of Deception, and I totally understand why, but I love it. I do know there is a fandom for it, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like this book, but I do. So that's my answer for that. Books that I don't like that I think are that's an interesting question. So I'll have to think on that. Justin Krager says, I agree with the New Dawn being underrated, but Stover being overrated hurts, LOL. I would join the Discord. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I know there's a lot of Stover fans out there. If you love his style, that's wonderful. He's just not for me. Unlikely Us says, also, if you didn't mention Stranger Things, I misheard because my animals have gone crazy. I apologize. Do you have any pets? I have 4 cats and 3 dogs, LOL. I work at a humane society. No problem. I did mention Stranger Things, by the way. And I do not have any pets because I live in an apartment right now with my brother, and we just don't have any. My parents have a dog that was my dog. Like, I was in charge of the dog growing up, and then went to college, and my parents kept the dog, and now the dog's just stayed with them. And I'm actually house sitting. So when I'm done with the stream, I'm going to go back to the house and stay with the dog. But other than that, I don't have any now. But I'm a dog person, and I will have, whenever I get into a house, I will have big dogs that I can cuddle with. But nice that you work at the Humane Society and have all those dogs and cats. MK says, hello, finally able to catch a live stream. Hello, MK. I'm so glad you're able to join us. Blue Pig says he fell down the rabbit hole. I'm sorry if I went down any rabbit holes there. Alan Rules says, I'm currently finishing off Heir to the Empire. Excellent novel, and I assume you're probably starting the Star Wars novels because that's where everyone starts, but really worth it. Be Cool, Play Nice says, what's the name of your podcast? It's called Two Sons of Tatooine. Sons is SONS. You can find us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, radio.com. Our primary place is Simplecast. We're also on iTunes, on the Apple Podcast app. It's Two Sons of Tatooine, TWO, Two Sons of Tatooine. And it's, if you go to my YouTube channel, go to the About section, there's a link to our channel, or to the podcast. So that's where you can go. Farley Lima, I hope I pronounced that, says, what is your favorite Forsaken from the Wheel of Time? None of them. I do not like the Forsaken. And really, like, of all the characters, whenever a Forsaken was on screen, I was like, okay, I guess. And they all blended together for me. I guess Mogideon, maybe Mogideon, but I don't love the Forsaken. If you ask me other favorite types of characters from the Wheel of Time, that'd be a much different answer. But the Forsaken was always like a group that, like, whenever Brandon, like, whenever he starts talking about them on podcasts, I just check out because it's just not something I ever cared about. But I wish we had gotten more of the Dark One specifically. Instead, we're like, ooh, it's the Dark One. No, it's just one of the Forsaken. Ooh, it's the Dark. Oh, it's just the Forsaken. Immortal David says, I know you read some Japanese manga before, but have you ever considered reading Scott Pilgrim versus the World by Brian Lee O'Malley, the American manga? The only reason I read the manga that I did was, one, to try it out, and I found that it was interesting, but if I'm going to spend my money and time reading stuff, it wasn't something I would like jump into. I could read it. I watched some scenes from the movie, and it didn't catch me, but maybe the manga's better. But it's not like I'm saying definitively I will never read it, but I'm a prose reader primarily. So yeah, I don't know, maybe. Where's the comments? What do you think of Heir to the Empire? I loved it. One of my favorites. Oh, he's talking to someone else. He says, I give it an 8 out of 10. Pretty good. Blue Pig says, wait, are you a part of the Tuscan Reader? No, I am not. That is the guy from that is Matthew Wilson from the Geek Static. He does the Tuscan Reader. I do not, sadly, because he's great. He's a great reviewer. Do you have Star Wars Legos as a kid? I love those. I had them as a kid, and we gave away most of them for some reason while I was still a kid. And we have some of them, but I haven't gotten any in the last 10 years. Unlikely Alex says, mine was Asmodean and wish for so much more. Would not mind a reinvention of him in the show. Asmodean was fine. I just didn't love them. Justin Krager says, Cloak of Deception, Maul, Shadow Hunter, Darth Plagueis is really a good unofficial trilogy in my opinion. That's a good point. Cloak of Deception and Plagueis are interesting because he wrote one not knowing he would get to write the other one, so he kind of wrote it a certain way in a certain style. And then he got Darth Plagueis. It was a gift, and he was like, ooh, I can do all this stuff. And while there's more nostalgia for me in Cloak of Deception, I realize Darth Plagueis is a much better book. And so, like, if of the two, it's a hard thing there. But yes, you're right. That is a good, interesting trilogy there. Alan Rule says, I've read a novel here or there, but I'm going from beginning to end now. That's wonderful, Alan. I'm glad, because the Legends line in particular is great, but the canon is also good. Revan says, 12 times, we have 2 dogs, 6 cats, a snake, a frog, 2 rats, and a hamster. We like animals a little bit. That's too much. I can take dogs. It's the only animal I will have in my house. Like, I'm okay if, like, go into a friend's house and they have a cat. I won't, like, have a problem, or like maybe even a turtle or something. But, like, in my house, it's just dogs. Like, that's the only thing I would have. Let's see where my comments are. Blue Pig says, anything skippable between the Jedi Academy trilogy and the New Jedi Order? Yeah, I would say the Han Solo trilogy, the Corellian trilogy, I should say. The Corellian trilogy, I would skip. I think that the Black Fleet Crisis also skip. Both of those, I think, are very weak. Some of the standalones aren't the best, but make sure to read the not the Shadow of Thrawn, the Hand of Thrawn duology. Make sure to read the Hand of Thrawn duology. That one's a must read, and probably Survivor's Quest, but I didn't love it as much, but other people did. So Nolan Lamar says, do you enjoy listening to music? I do, but I enjoy listening to classical music or more often film score music or TV score music, not pop, rock, any of that stuff. But I have a brother who is very musical, and I hear that type of music all the time because he plays his guitar all the time. So I do hear it often. Farley Lima says, unlikely ally. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm also reading Shadow Rising. Mine so far is Agonor, LOL. Yeah. Again, I really didn't whenever I was reading, I was like, okay, we're getting Forsaken. Ooh, let's go back to Rand. Okay, ooh, we're at Perrin, or we're at Matt, or someone, or even Moraine, or any of the other Aes Sedai. But I would take the Red Aja Aes Sedai characters over the Forsaken because I found them much more interesting personally. And also, I just despise them so much. Whereas the Forsaken was just like, didn't love it as much. Farley Lima says, I just read that one. Sorry. Spider says, do you file your books in a specific order? How do you put them up? Yes, but it changes from shelf to shelf. So I have all of the Shannara books kind of in order, except some of my hardcovers are out, but it's mostly the Shannara books and then his other series, the Magic Kingdom of Landover. I have some other fantasy series here, and this is actually usually not in frame because the other fantasy books are on my table at the moment. Usually this is out of frame. And then I have my paperbacks of the Rune Lords and the hardcovers. Then I have my Cosmere novels and Wheel of Time novels, and then a few other Tor. I try to keep the Tor stuff together because Tor is the best publisher in my mind for fantasy. And then for Star Wars, I have the canon in order for the adult novels. Then I have the young adult novels in order. And then I have the hardcovers and the paperbacks for Legends down here. And it's a jumbled mess because there's so much Legends and I don't have space. And then for Star Trek, Star Trek is so hard to do because there are different series and there's different lines and there's so much. So Star Trek's all over the place. And then sci-fi, I've just been throwing them on the shelf. Keep a series together, but other than that, where that series is compared to other books, it's all over the place. Let's get to some other comments. Mask Studios, do you have a podcast and where can I listen to it? Yes, I do. Two Sons of Tatooine. We are on Simplecast, Facebook, iTunes. There's a podcast called Tatooine Sons, a great podcast, not ours. Ours is Two Sons of Tatooine. If you go to the About section on my YouTube channel, we have a link to it. Fantasy Night says LOTR music is the best. Yes, it is. It is one of the best. Unlikely Ally says, any good book news from Comic-Con? I've been out of the loop mostly. So I don't find out a lot of the book news from Comic-Con usually until afterwards because they reveal the videos and the footage. Sometimes little pictures of the covers and stuff will leak. If we're talking about Star Wars books specifically, if we're talking about just general books, I don't know. It's hard to follow that stuff. Some good book news, though, is that one of my favorite books of last year, Picard Rogue Elements, it won the Scribe Award, which was revealed at Comic-Con. That was some good book news there. But most of it I find out like a week or two later. It's not like some other types of things where they have like a live stream of the stuff. They need to do more live streams of panels at Comic-Con because most people can't attend. And also there's a lot of information there that we need. So, yeah. But Star Wars stuff, it'll come eventually. If you follow, there's a Facebook page called Upcoming Star Wars Books and Comics. That's a good one to follow for a lot of the news. Let's see. Spider says, when do you get rid of books? Never get rid of books. That's a evil concept. No, never getting rid of books. I have occasionally, if I have a bunch of duplicates, and I don't want duplicates, I'll get rid of the duplicates. But my general rule is I will never get rid of the books because I want to have a huge collection. I want to have, whenever I get to the point where I have a house, I want to have rooms and rooms of books. and I want to get to that place. And if I keep getting rid of books, it's going to get hard to get to that point. And I want those books to be books that I've read. So I try to buy and keep every book that I've read, although that doesn't always work out if I'm borrowing a book from someone. Mass Studio says, thank you. Johan Herrenberg says, I guess you like symphonic music if you like epic soundtracks. Any favorite composers? So we'll do movie score, then we'll do classical. For movie score, it is John Powell, and John Williams is the GOAT, but it's John Williams. John Powell. I would also have James Newton Howard, James Horner, oh man, the guy that does Game of Thrones. Why am I blanking? Ramin Djawadi, and then also who's the fifth one? I had a fifth one. I don't remember. Maybe Michael Giacchino. But those four top-notch guys. And then for classical, I do anything from like Bach and Beethoven. I also really like Handel. I think Handel is my favorite of the classical ones. So. Be cool, play nice. Have you read Ender's Game? No, but I have it on my list, and I've tried. I opened it up and was like, it's not for me yet, and that was 7 years ago. So we'll see. I might get into it, but at the moment, not on my immediate list, but I have it. Fantasy Knight says, have you read the Greenbone Saga? That's by that's the Jade War, Jade Legacy, Jade something or other by Fonda Lee. No, I heard it's like kind of got similar overtones to the Poppy War. And I am interested because I did, even though Poppy War was hard to read and it wasn't my favorite, Poppy War, it was well done. So I'm like, I might get to it, but I have other stuff to get first. So I'll get to that other stuff first. Spider says, thank you for answering my questions, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Well, thank you for being here, Spider, and thank you for taking the time. Techno Viking says, would you recommend the last 4 books in the Rune Lord series? I highly enjoyed the first 4. The first 4 are significantly better. The last 4 suffer from being shorter, from not having as much direction, and also because the author died before finishing the last one. He was working on the last novel. He had written a lot of it, but he wasn't done. So the last one, the last 4 feel incomplete. It's kind of like reading the Game of Thrones novels. You're like, oh man, like, why am I reading this if it's never going to get finished? It's that kind of feeling. But I'd say the first 4 for sure everyone needs to read, but the last 4, if you loved the first 4, maybe read. And there were some great. The book I thought World Binder was amazing, and I thought that the 2 that follow it, Wormling Horde and Chaos Bound, were fun, but just not on the same level. So sorry, but for sure the first 4 are great. Revan 1207 says, what are your favorite books to film show adaptations? I love LOTR, but I also think the 2000s Narnia movies are great, especially the first. Yes, LOTR is the standard. It is the absolute standard. And then Narnia is a good one. I think that Harry Potter, solid, like as close as they possibly could have gotten. There's stylistic things I didn't like that they did, but for what it could have been, solid adaptation. I have not. I this month I will start reading the Hunger Games stuff, so I'll get to that eventually. I thought that Game of Thrones, the first 3 seasons matched up with the books, and then they start going off the rails. But I liked the show better than the books in seasons 4, 5, and 6, and then 7 and 8. That's where it derailed. So, but Narnia was really good as well. I thought that both the original BBC version and the new movie version from Disney and Walden Media were both very excellent. Let's see. Tristan Porter says, what's your favorite book? What do you think of Shadow of the Gods? Shadow of the Gods is my picture on my computer when I open my computer, because it's an amazing, gorgeous cover. But I haven't read it yet because I want to finish John Gwynn's other series. I've read the first 2 books of the Faithful and the Fallen, and I want to read the next 2 books there and then get to Shadow of the Gods. That's the problem with so many things, is I have so many books I want to get to eventually. And I'm going to try to wrap up quickly here if I can. Unlikely Ally says, at Revan, one of my favorite, by the way, my favorite book of all time is Elantris. Hands down. Says, what a unique and wonderful fantasy novel. I've heard about that one. Haven't read it. Also, I think an outlier of loving The Magician's Nephew was my favorite Narnia book. My English teacher, it was her favorite book in the series by far. And I was like, really? That's your favorite? My favorite is Horse and His Boy. But the original is also very good. Language in the Wardrobe. Spider says, I just remembered a Star Trek book where they met the X-Men. Yes, they did do a couple of Star Trek books where they connected with the X-Men series. That was Michael Jan Friedman that did that. I have not read those books because I just haven't gotten to them yet, but they did do that. So Scrappy Coco says, have any of your rankings of the series changed from when you made a video of them? A little bit. Warbreaker popped up a little bit in my Cosmere ranking. My Star Wars ones, I think that my the High Republic novels are like dipped a little teeny tiny bit for me. Maybe Master and Apprentice and Thrawn are above them now, but other than that, my rankings are pretty much the same. My Star Trek rankings are all the same. So yeah, I haven't changed too much. See some more comments. Revan1207 says, I forgot Harry Potter somehow, but I've only seen the movies and listened to the bits and pieces of the audiobooks. My wife likes to listen to them. The Harry Potter novels are great, and the Harry Potter movies are also great. So well worth the time, and they're pretty quick reads. So all right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I would love to continue, but my voice is starting to strain, and I am tired. Thank you for it. They had a great turnout today. I'm going to end the stream in a second, and it'll go up in its entirety soon once it finishes loading. We will do another stream in a couple of weeks. In next week, I have a Star Trek review on Saturday instead. And then the week after that, normally I would have a video. I would have a live stream. But instead of that, I'm going to have a pre-recorded video because I am going to go meet Delilah Dawson in person at a book signing. And so I'll be traveling most of the day. So won't be able to record live. But we'll do a live stream the week after that. So thank you, everyone, for being here, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone in the stream.